with everyone, because the idea behind today is that it's not just, you know, for the people on the call, but actually for people in the future who will be looking to kind of investigate a little bit more about in-house services and estates. So here we have Isabel Coman, who is the Managing Director, and she will be speaking to us today for about 10-15 minutes about what her team do, and then we'll be answering questions from anyone in the room. So the reason this sort of came about is because when we did our sort of membership feedback, we asked what people were looking for, and many people said they felt that perhaps roles they would consider in their own team, they might not consider in a different team because they don't know enough about it, or what that team does and their sort of purpose. So we've decided to try and get some recorded sessions, just 15 minutes, with each managing director of each team, sort of talking through what their team does, so that hopefully it wouldn't put people off applying for jobs in those teams, and you'll see a bit more kind of progression across teams rather than just in their little silos. So with that, if that's all right, I'll hand over to you, Isabel, and I will probably turn my camera off and mute myself. But as Irving says, if anyone has any questions, put them in the chat and we'll hopefully come to them after, or if Isabel wants to address them during the event, then that's fine. Is that okay?
Thank you very much, Heather, and thank you very much for inviting me today. I noticed some of my colleagues from IHSE are on the call, so I'm very happy for them to help me support any questions about what we do and how we do it, just to make sure you get that full breadth of understanding. I think before I talk about what we do in IHSE, it might be worth just understanding a little bit about where I come from. So I've only been in Parliament for I think just over 18 months now, and before that I spent my whole career working in construction, actually in contracting, so the building end of construction, but working on big railway projects really, so I've got a lot of experience of building projects. I haven't got a lot of experience of Parliament, but I think I'm a good example of how you can move from, even at a very senior level, from one sort of real type of career into something different. And it was a real step change for me. But what's been amazing, and an amazingly positive thing for me, is to see that the skills and capabilities I've developed over a 20+ year career in something that felt quite niche, and I was on a certain track, could move into something completely different. And actually they were really transferable skills, and they were really valuable in another kind of organization that did something very different. And I think so that, for me, is a really important lesson for me. But I think it's really key if you're looking to expand your opportunities and think about where you might lend your skills in another team, because I feel like it really is true. I've proved to myself it can be true. So that's probably enough about me, and I'm more than happy to take any questions about me as well, if that's of interest, and sort of my experiences. In terms of in-house services and estate, so we're also quite a newly formed team. So actually it was two teams that came together just before I joined, and one was the in-house services team and the other was the strategic estates. And strategic estates delivered primarily all the big capital projects on the estate, so that's all of the investment in our buildings and infrastructure. And the in-house services team were really there providing the operational services, so catering, cleaning and customer services, and then all the maintenance of the buildings, which is clearly really important for those of you who are sitting in warm, cold, whatever offices. It is absolutely key to keeping Parliament going. And I think really the really interesting thing about in-house services and estates, now that those two teams have come together, is really the breadth of what we do. I almost feel like we do everything in our team. There's not many sort of roles or jobs that we don't do, and so I think we just provide just enormously fertile ground for anyone to come and have a new experience and do something and learn something. And I think the thing that was really important about those two teams coming together was that whilst they do a very broad range of activities, so whether that's running the encaustic tiles project or looking at designs for how we make Parliament perimeter more secure, or whether we are cooking fine dining meals, or we're up putting the flags on the top of Victoria Tower, whilst we do that enormous breadth of roles and all the support functions that go behind that to enable those roles to happen, they're really interlinked. So they are not able to operate in a silo. You cannot maintain a water system if you don't understand what water system was put in, or there's not someone there to set the technical standards for that. And you can't run the fine dining and catering offering if you don't have the right logistics to enable products to be brought into the estate. And so it's just this hugely complex organisation in that sense, and everybody is very, very reliant on everybody else in the team. And so I think that's possibly one of the most exciting things about being in health services in the States, is that feeling of team and contributing and seeing how you fit into a really big and complicated jigsaw puzzle. So some of the really exciting things, if I'm going to get to some of those that we're doing, are clearly some of the really big projects that you see. So from Elizabeth Tower, which now is about to be revealed in all its glory. So the scaffolding finally, after 4 years, is starting to come down. In fact, last week it started to come down, and the clock faces will be revealed, and then gradually over the next 3 months, the whole of the tower will be revealed, and by the spring it will be all but finished as a project. But you will have noticed things like the encaustic tiles being replaced throughout the palace. You probably won't have noticed so much, other than the scaffolding, that the roof on the cast iron roofs have almost been entirely replaced. So we do some really exciting big projects. When you look to our maintenance team, though, I thoroughly recommend, if you get the opportunity to do any tours with our maintenance teams, it is so exciting going back of house with them to see both the challenges that they face, but also the sorts of equipment they are maintaining. So they are maintaining blends of things that have just been installed. So the basement in the palace is another really good example. It has the latest fire suppression system down there, but they're also dealing with the original sewage ejectors that were built in the Victorian age, and that's a piece of equipment they have to maintain and keep going. So they just, the things they see behind the scenes are absolutely incredible, and of course really, really key that they spend a lot of their time, because of the condition of our buildings, in responding to keeping those buildings going. If you move to some of the catering teams, again, I thoroughly recommend anyone who gets to get a tour of the catering facilities. When you look at the broad range of things we do there, it ranges from all the standard kind of cafeteria type outlets we have, but right through to banqueting and the amazing fine dining. We have the only butchery other than on Park Lane in London in an operating building, so we have butchers and people who can actually take large joints of meat and fish and things and fillet them and prepare them for the fine dining. And we have a pastry kitchen, which is just the most amazing place with like the most fabulous, exquisite desserts and things. And that's all for within our team, people delivering those sorts of things. And so the biggest challenge, I think, is bringing that all together, enabling all of those teams to be able to work well together, and also, of course, and as you all know, Parliament is a very dynamic environment, so all of those teams working together, but also responding all the time to the changing needs of Parliament. So whether that's an election or a pandemic, or because it's sitting for longer, or it has to be a very agile team. And yet we want to plan for the future too. So we want to know that we're investing money wisely, that we're setting up the right services, and we're developing the service that we provide to Parliament and continuing to improve and understand where we're going as a team. And I think the thing that has been very exciting for me during the last 18 months, and the thing that my board and I have worked very hard on, is sort of what are we about as a team, and what is the common thread that can link someone who is cleaning the Millbank house to someone who is cooking fine dining to someone who is looking after cast iron roof project. And I think the thing that we've really been able to agree unites us is the professional skills that are needed within that. And that's really exciting to sort of be able to get behind that and say, you know, we are here to provide a really professional service in whatever we do. That is what we are here to do. And so that has been a really exciting journey for us as a leadership team. I've, of course, because we do so many amazing things and so many things to support amazing things, I'm just really proud of the whole team. I'm really proud in my time here of how they've responded to the pandemic and dealt with it and continue to keep Parliament running, but also the endeavours they have made to be a better team, to improve themselves, to look at how we operate and to make that be as good as we can be. And we've still got lots and lots to do. So I say, for anyone thinking of coming in to join us, we're a really changing team, an evolving team, and we're one that really wants to progress and be better. So that's also a really challenging environment to work in, but it's also really exciting. So if you've got lots of ideas and you want to do things and you want to move things forward, we're a really good place to come and do that. And in terms, finally, because I know I've got 15 minutes maximum, I think in terms of career progression, and I can see Carissa on the call, so she might be able to help me with this as well. We have done a lot of thinking as well about how we support people to be to develop in their careers and their specialist professional parts of their careers, and we've got an academy set up to help people navigate their way through that. But also it's really important to us that we're mapping now career pathways through our team, so that we set that out and people are able to more clearly see how they might progress and develop through us. So I think that's I don't know if I've really summarised IHSE. It's so big. We've got basically we're a team of nearly 900, so we're doing a lot and very broad. But I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Isabel. There are two in the chat. One is from Irving, who wants to know, classic Irving, how he can get some of these backstage tours with maintenance. Does he just need to go up to the staff and ask? Did you get like a privilege kind of?
I don't know. I think maybe we can take this offline and think if maybe through ParliON we could do something. So rather than just
open them up to everyone. Yeah.
But I'm really happy that we could small groups or things we could arrange. If people are particularly interested, we could look at what the things are and then we could show people around, because I think it's really helpful to kind of connect with what we do and to see it in reality.
Yeah, definitely. I actually have a question for you about your sort of career. So you mentioned that you had to change and you were able to. I was wondering, did you have to sort of sacrifice any pay or sacrifice something to do that? And did you have to get new qualifications to kind of go across into a new career?
So yes, moving from the private sector to the public sector, there is financial consequences for that. But in terms of qualifications, or no, I didn't need to do any. That wasn't I met all the criteria that was needed.
So almost just the confidence to apply.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Somebody has put sort of a message about how they've seen that catering has recently introduced sort of halal sandwiches, which I've seen, and it is very exciting. Sort of with things changing that quickly, are you having to think a lot about kind of new dietary requirements and really changing the services that kind of catering are providing?
Oh yeah, so catering are constantly sort of having to look at that, and of course the real challenge for them is that there's so many opinions and views and needs from we are feeding thousands of people on the estate, and so that really sets different requirements. And of course then things do change, and things like Natasha's law, for instance, has come into fruition, and now we have to comply with that. So there's always things, and then there's the navigation of that through domestic committees, because there's always a financial consideration, and there's also a practical consideration in terms of things like admin committee, and then generally we also have to have a close link in catering, because we have two different catering services. So we run the House of Commons catering actually, and House of Lords run their own catering, but there's got to be, whilst they're different, there's got to be connection, and we've got to kind of step in line with each other as well, so that the catering team they're sort of continually reviewing the detail of what they do, but also the strategy of where they're trying to go.
It's really interesting actually if you think about it, because you think about diversity and inclusion and just about actually sort of, terms of people you see, but actually thinking about who you're feeding and the needs of everyone you're feeding is quite a good example of inclusion. So yeah, that's really interesting. A final question from me. I think it would be really good to hear a little bit more about the steps you're taking in terms of those career pathways. I think it's really good work, and I think it's something that should hopefully inspire lots of teams across the house to build in sort of steps as to how you can progress in this team, so people can come in and see where they're going. I don't know if Carissa wants to come in on this, or you, but I would really like just maybe perhaps a little more detail on what's been going on there and why.
I think why is because as a board we've said it's really important. And Carissa's, I mean, I think she would, if you don't mind coming in.
I'm happy, no problem at all. It actually links to one of the questions here about the culture. It's one of our aims in terms of ensuring IHSE is as inclusive as possible, and that all of our colleagues thrive at work. So we are starting with looking at competency frameworks for each area of the business. So what are the specific technical competencies that are required? And then what are the repeatable competencies in terms of leadership, our expectations on behaviour, which obviously align with the broader house expectations. So the work is currently in its early stage, and we're piloting certain areas. So we're piloting in project delivery and health and safety first. And if I take project delivery as an example, we want to look at from entry level right through to charterships, so that our colleagues know what they need for each stage in their career journey. And with that, we're also looking at the barriers in each stage of the journey. And one of the things that has been recognised and might resonate with people on the call is that the jump from B1 to A2, for example, often requires management experience, which isn't necessarily always available at B1. So where we can unblock some of those barriers and offer further support, we're trying to do that for our colleagues in IHSE.
Amazing, thank you so much, Carissa. Isabel, quite a few questions are suddenly starting rolling in. Are you happy to stay on an extra 5 and answer some?
Yeah, absolutely. Which ones would you like me to field?
I think the first one's quite interesting. So obviously Carissa just mentioned culture. What was your first impression on the culture working in the house?
So it's really mixed for me. I think there's some really positive things and things that also I find quite challenging. I think so really positive in terms of, I think under pressure the house comes together, and I see a really sort of amazing collaboration around things. But I think in other when there's not a kind of high pressured circumstance, actually you don't see that so much. And I certainly Carissa mentioned the words collaborative, but actually for me within our team, one of the really important things has been to be able to look at, it's very easy to be to sort of be criticised in what you're doing and not performing at a certain thing, and then sort of try and divert that to where it might, other people might be responsible for it. And I think because of the context where we work, that does happen. And actually I think that it's really difficult to undo that, but it is really important to, because actually people are people and not machines. And I think when it's really important that you get that we get a better team ethos not in a crisis. Sorry, I haven't explained that very well. So I think for me, there's a real it's an example where there's real contrast in how teams work together, depending on the sort of situation.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that, to be honest. But I do think their behaviour code and the sort of steps that people are taking are on their way to undoing.
Yeah.
Hopefully those behaviours, touch wood. Final two questions. You spoke about having to make a kind of financial sacrifice to move from private to public sector. Do you think that the House kind of makes up for that in terms of development, experience and progression? What would you say to someone who was thinking of making that leap?
I think it depends on what your sort of purpose is and what you're trying to achieve a bit more sort of long term in your career. So for me, it's a completely different experience, and so for me it's a real in role development experience, and particularly the context of the political context and public sector context and many things. So that's why for me it's a real development opportunity. So that's very exciting for me, and I'm challenged every day, and that's where I like to be. And for me also really important that I feel like there's a contribution to society as the end thing of what I do. So I think it really depends on individuals. So if you're looking for a different type of experience that's going to broaden you or develop you, then it's really worth considering if you can afford it. I mean, it's obviously
Definitely. I mean, we definitely have, you could say, difficult customers here that I imagine other places will have, but perhaps not with so much power. Final question, what measures are you planning to encourage kind of existing staff to progress in the House? So I guess, like, what's your message and kind of how do you keep them motivated and wanting to progress in your team?
It's really, I mean, there's the formal stuff that we're doing with Carissa and our but I think people, the thing I would say is be good at what you do and kind of be brave in sort of putting yourself forward for different experiences and trying different things. And if you want, I think there's something really healthy in applying for jobs, and you don't always get them. I think you have to but I think testing yourself is a really good thing. And if you put yourself forward something and you don't get it, kind of learning from that and trying to really understand why that is and what support you then need to make that change or that jump. I think that's it's really valuable. So I mean, it could be a bit, crushing. I recognise that, having been there myself, but you got to taking everything as a learning experience, and sort of, if that's important to you, I think that would be my message.
Amazing. I would also say the WENs are a wonderful opportunity to develop yourself and take on further kind of, different work and experiences. So if anyone is interested, do let me know. Thank you very much for coming today. This has been really insightful. I've really enjoyed it. I think lots of people on the call have enjoyed it based on some of the kind of in-depth questions we've received. This will be available on our public SharePoint alongside an MD in the Lord and a couple more coming in the future. But Isabel was our second speaker, so thank you very much for sort of piloting this for us and speaking today. It's been really insightful and helpful, so thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Isabel. Thank you, everyone.